owes to its founder. This was an amazing leader. And so I was really refreshed as I read this. Thank you, John, for suggesting it. And I have something else to tell my children about as far as a great Christian leader out there that we can look up to. Any questions? That's all I have tonight.
One of the points that we tried to make early in our biblical worldview roundtables was the fact of the barriers that convinced Christians have in reaching a non-Christian world. We discussed this, that there were two primary barriers. One was enmity, and the other one was affinity. Enmity is a case where what you believe, your core belief, is utterly repugnant and hateful in the eyes of the recipients. This is what we were dealing with. You just heard it about a great, unparalleled musical genius. He was hated because of his belief. Then there is the principle of affinity. It's the things that we selfishly want to the point where we will exclude anything else. You remember when we were dealing with Charles Darwin? His greatest adherents and popularizers maintained, you recall, that they were not taken with Darwin because of his science. What they were really saying to you, it's junk science. But I like it because it's an alternative to the God in whom I do not want to believe. So you had enmity at work with Darwin, and you had affinity. Even the man known as Darwin's bulldog admitted that it was his human preference, the things he hated and the things he wanted. So when we get to the study of George Whitefield tonight, you are going to notice that all throughout Whitefield's career, Steve, he was fighting this idea of enmity and resentment, resistance. It's a powerful part of being a biblical worldview thinker. It's not for sissies. Now, we're going to have, as our second part, we're going to ask Dale Whittle, a very busy businessman who probably should have said no to us when we approached you, Dale, about 6 weeks ago. You probably should have said, no, John, I don't have the time. Thankfully, you didn't. Because he's going to talk about a man who began a Christian dynasty. And I don't mean that in a corrupt, human, egotistical way. You're going to learn about one of the great Christian heroes. And gentlemen, I'd like you to ask yourselves a question. All during the 2 months that we're going to talk about great biblical heroes, you ask yourself why you're learning about them for the first time. You won't know much about Edwards. Certainly I didn't. And you will know nothing about Whitefield unless you've been reading his notes. We are being cheated regularly out of our Christian inheritance. And Dale, thank you for coming here. It's going to take us a moment to get you rigged up for sound, but we have some pictures for your part.
Hi, my name's Dale, and I know a few of you guys in here, and a few of you guys have heard me talk on this subject of Jonathan Edwards. And what I've done is I've given you an outline here, which I'm not going to really follow. What I was going to do is just have this for some notes for you guys. Basically what I want to do is just give you a precursor of Jonathan Edwards' life. There's a lot of information that you can get on all of these heroes, and I could probably bore you with a lot of details, but what I want to do is get to the essence of what Jonathan Edwards was really about and what drove him to be the man that he became. So some of these things that we'll run over tonight, the objectives are the overview of Edwards' life, his relentless pursuit of holiness, and thirdly, your Christian walk. We'll question you on that. And we might have a little question answer time later on to see where we go with this. Certain parts of this I'm going to speed through that really are a little bit too much information, but Just real quickly, he was right about the same time period as Bach, 1703, October 5th, to he passed away March 22nd, 1758. His parents, Reverend Timothy, and his mother, Esther Stoddard. He was the only son among 10 daughters, which later will become important because the daughters, his sisters, ended up actually teaching him later on. His father was Harvard-trained pastor. He was well respected in a church that he pastored for over 60 years, which is a long pastorate. He was well respected as well. He was a strict disciplinarian and an excellent teacher. Note those words, that he was very strict. His mother was from a prominent family in the Northeast, and her father was Solomon Stoddard. He was considered the Northampton Pope. So he was very highly thought of. He pastored a church there also for over 60 years. She was intelligent, and a very important word, demanding. So this formed what he was to be later. Sisters were sent to finishing school in Boston, and they actually came back and helped Jonathan in his studies. His early years, he had an excellent education, preparing him for life focused on God and the puritanical theology, which was very prominent at this time. I think you mentioned the Enlightened years. He was steeped in that. College, what was to become Yale, and it was known for its Calvinist views and not the Arminian leanings of Harvard. He graduated first in his class in 1720. Do the math. He was 17 years old. Graduated. So he was a very bright individual. Graduate school and master's following immediately. He was influenced by Calvin, John Owen, William Ames. Edward was also steeped in the studies of Greek, Hebrew, metaphysics, ethics, Christian theology, and classic literature. I don't think they had Game Boy when he was a kid, so he didn't have to get messed up on that stuff. He was converted at the age of 17, his second year of grad school. 1 Timothy 1:17 says, "There came into my soul and was, as it were, diffused through it, a sense of glory to the divine being, a new sense quite different from anything I ever expected before." His first job was interim pastorate of a Scottish Presbyterian church. And he also had a burning desire to be everything in a complete manner being a Christian, which was very important in the development of where he went with his studies. There was a big soul-searching period of life. Now, think about this. 17 years old, and this guy was soul-searching. I don't know about you guys, but I'm in my late 50s. I'm soul-searching now. He did this like 4 years prior. Maybe you guys are way ahead of me. I don't know. But he came up with 70 resolutions to run his life by at the age of 18. Now, he just became a Christian at age 17, came up with these resolutions at age 18. Process, he wrote down his thoughts, desires, contemplations, and put them into a systematic guideline of checks and balances. Master's thesis, a sinner is not justified in the sight of God except through the righteousness of Christ obtained by faith. That's a real shallow subject for a kid his age. His career in marriage, November of 23 and May to 24, he was the interim pastor of Congregational Church in Bolton, Connecticut. He had leanings toward being in the professor world, being a teacher. He was an instructor at Yale for 2 years, from 24 to 26. At age July of 1728, he was married to Sarah Pierpoint, the daughter of a pastor of New Haven. and then he'd courted her for 4 years. He was conflicted, teacher, preacher. He chose to take the higher road. He had a calling, like John was mentioning earlier. The man was truly called to do what he did. February 15th of 1727, he became the associate pastor to his 83-year-old grandfather, Solomon Stoddard. Stoddard dies 2 years later. He takes over this pastorate. Still a young man, 24 years old. Takes over one of the largest churches. He became the pastor there and continued for 26 years. 1740 to 42, the Great Awakening. George Whitefield, 25,000 converts to 50,000 converts at this period of time. They had massive crowds of people would come and listen to these people talk. Jonathan Edwards was one of these men. June 22nd, 1750, the Northampton ministry ends over differences over communion. He was a very committed man to what he believed the scriptures said, but yet there was some dissension in the church. He professed Christ and the fruits of conversion. Some of the people did not want to hear that message. There was a major split at that time. Well, in 1751 to 57, he took on this pioneer ministry. It was an Indian ministry. It was very humbling times for him. He'd come out of one of the largest churches in the New England area to do this, where he was basically ministering to the Indians, and it was more of a social ministry as well. While he was at this school, during this period of time, these 6 years, the people in this church that he had pastored for those many years actually wouldn't let the flame die on the controversy. They stayed at him. And they continued to have a lot of negative press, if you will, over Jonathan Edwards. And actually accused him of embezzlement. I mean, think about that, embezzlement. Pretty amazing. Well, it forced the school to close in 1757. February 16th, 1758, he became the president of Princeton University. And he didn't really want this position, but yet the people that were in the hierarchy of the university talked him into it, and he says, okay, I will do it. March 22nd, 1758, Edwards dies. I mean, right afterwards, he takes this position. He was trying to show the people that it was okay to take the smallpox vaccination. And as a result, he had complications, passed away. His wife, Sarah, died the same year, October 2nd, the result of a smallpox vaccination complication. She contracts dysentery and dies. Very tragic. I mean, a brilliant man, and to have his career ended in such a way. It's just amazing. A lot of controversy over Jonathan Edwards. A lot of controversy in his later years. Okay, why should we look at Jonathan Edwards as a hero? A hero is any person, especially a man, admired for qualities or achievements and regarded as an ideal or a model. So we're not just going through heroes just to talk about some interesting guys, because there definitely aren't too many heroes out there today that we look up to them. What people look up today are these sports figures, or people that make a lot of money, Bill Gates types. Men like this have hero qualities with character and integrity. Things like John was mentioning, we don't talk about this today. Okay, I'm going to skip over this. This was a little bit of a different thing that we were doing, but just very quickly, one of the things in reviewing character qualities was that Jonathan Edwards was definitely a self-disciplined man. But what character qualities of this hero are applicable to a father or a grandfather? So, let me ask a question. We're going to diverge here a little bit from Jonathan Edwards. What do you think were the character qualities that this hero had through his father or grandfather? Oh, anybody want to answer that?
We have a microphone for you if you do.
Yes, there's a microphone right in the table if you want to answer that.
Develop that question a little bit for us. You're saying, what did he inherit from his father and grandfather?
What do you think caused him to get to that point? I gave you a hint when I first started out with talking about the parents. Have your parents formed you at all? Any of your character qualities by your parents? So what things do you think he got from his parents?
Well, the characteristics of having a strict disciplinarian as a father and his mother being demanding was mentioned earlier. Those carried through his life from the example that we learn.
Definitely. Those two things probably, you hit them right on the nose. Those two things probably formed his character more than anything. The fact that his mother, when I was a little boy, I used to trail after my mother from room to room, and she used to, teach me different things. But when she was demanding and told me what to do, I followed. Well, I think that his mother was the same way, and his father was very demanding as well, and very strict. Let's move on. Discipline. I discipline my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. Holiness, the pursuit of holiness. Sanctification, pursue sanctification without which no one will see the Lord. In other words, the path that leads to heaven must first lead to holiness. Holiness, this pursuit necessitates discipline. Okay, let's think back. 18 years old. What's he thinking? Discipline, focus. This guy is riveted on his future. He knows that he has to pursue this in the highest fashion. Like John mentions, and I've heard John say this for years now, he had a high view of God, which so many people today don't have. Again, the 70 resolutions when he was 18 years old. Being sensible that I am unable to do anything without God's help, I do humbly entreat Him by His grace to enable me to keep these resolutions so far as they are agreeable to His will for Christ's sake. Like we talked before about Bach, there were a lot of people during this time. There was tremendous cultural precedence for why he became who he was. Benjamin Franklin wrote the 13 moral virtues. George Washington, who we mentioned, 110 rules for civility. And there was a puritanical precedence. This was very cultural. The whole area was caught up in all these things. There were many revivals at this time. And then, of course, Edwards' 70 resolutions. Spiritual purpose. First, Edwards kept his spiritual priorities always in front of him. His spiritual eye was riveted on eternity. His 70 resolutions had one goal. That was heaven. That was it. Very singular. Second, the 70 resolutions served as guidelines for self-examination. This will become apparent later. Okay, we're going to talk about 6 categories here quickly. Pursuing the glory of God, forsaking sin, making use of God's allotted time, very important one. Living with all his being for the Lord, pursuing humility and love, and making frequent self-examinations. This was probably his hallmark right there. First of all, pursuing God's glory. It was his chief priority. Everything he did pointed to this, glorifying God in every thought, word, and deed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip some of these things. But what this says below here, purpose to do whatsoever I think to be most to God's glory, number 1. What this is referring to, these numbers that you see here, number 4, number 27, these were part of his resolutions. So what he did was he broke down how he lived his life per his resolutions. At 18, I remind you again. Forsaking sin, fall and grow dull so as to neglect to keep any part of these resolutions, he would repent. Number 3. You can read on down. Many resolutions that would follow right after this forsaking of sin. It was not like he took these titles and then went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that was what he put that to in his life. He jumped all over the place because he followed and tracked his life, and as he saw the resolutions necessary, he inserted them. Proper use of God's allotted time. Never to lose one moment of time. Number 5. He was very focused on his use of time. He considered it God's time, not his time. Now, I think John's probably mentioned something that would probably parallel that thought about how we run our lives and how we live our lives. Do we live them for ourselves, or are we living them for God? Which goes right along with a higher view of God. Living with all his being for the Lord, to live with all my might while I do live, number 6. And then the subsequent other resolutions that supported all of these thoughts as to how he wanted to live his life. Pursuing humility and love. Act as if no one had been so vile as I, and as if I had committed the same sins as others. So throw off pride and vanity. I was just really amazed at his ability at this age to get so deep into what caused him to do certain things and to live his life a certain way. Making frequent self-examination. Examine carefully and constantly what caused him to doubt the love of God. This was a very good one. He vowed to inquire every night what sin I have committed. He constantly examined his life. And as you can see by this resolution, he did it on a daily basis, every single night. He journaled. Any of you guys journal? Edwards kept track of his progress or lack thereof. There's an excerpt here. Edwards again admitted his weakness and inability to keep the resolutions he was making. The problem was his heart, which remained deceitful. Even when he made a strong resolution, he had not sure the strength to keep it. How deceitful is my heart! I take up a strong resolution, but how soon doth it weaken? He struggled with this. You know, a lot of times we like to think of heroes as perfect. And we get this view of heroes as they have no issues in life. And like with Bach, he was this prolific writer. But yet, look what happened when he died. A lot of issues, a lot of struggles. People didn't like him. Edwards dealt with the same issues. Self-assessment. Edwards composed resolutions with the proper self-assessment. He understood no matter how resolved or determined he might be, he could not glorify God in his own strength. It was one thing to make a resolution, but something else entirely to keep it. He saw that living the Christian life involved far more than merely selecting a path to pursue. The resolutions must be a humble attempt to submit oneself to the will of God in all things. His life was not his own. He belonged entirely to God and must live to surrender to Him. This is key, guys. This right here is probably one of the things that drove him the most. He understood his position to God. Today, we have this horizontal relationship. Many people, like John mentioned earlier, have this very small view of God. I think Edwards was in awe of God and his power and wanted to pursue the holiness based on that view solely. Which one of these do you think best describes our character here, our hero, Jonathan Edwards? I personally think that he exemplifies all of them. He definitely had to have the conviction. John mentioned to look at the things that are on the list here, the hallmark of the chosen heroes. And you can go down here, and I was looking at this while I was waiting to get up here, and just, it was a checklist of these attributes that these men have. It's uncanny how God used these men. I think he was very committed. The 70 resolutions, self-discipline. He was connected, definitely. There was a loyalty to God. And he was very courageous. He stood up for what he believed. Okay, there's a price tag to live a life like this. There's a big price tag. A life of resolve comes with a price tag. You will be tested by the lure of the world. Good, better, best. How many of you guys live a good life? How many of you guys strive to live a better life? And we know God expects us to live the best life. Not about us, but about Him. See, I think that's where we get kind of screwed up on things. We get things out of kilter because we're weighing things as they apply to us. We say, I want to live a good life. We think about comfort and all these different things. Well, I think that the price tag here is, when you look at the question here, do you want to know God's will for your life? Do you want to know who to marry? Do you want to know what job to take? Do you want to know what ministry to pursue? Do you want to know how to invest your resources? Do you want to know how to spend your time? Everything you do must bring glory to God. See, we think it's about us. Jonathan Edwards did not. He knew that it was about God and God's glory. That's why he pursued that in his life. He pursued holiness. Well, I don't think a lot of men, and I'll say men in our society, understand what that means to pursue